KTSM 915-544-5876 or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us on the many outlets we're on social media now, including facebook.com/Talk El Paso, still considered kind of the flagship, at least in my mind, at least for now. See how that goes. But we're also streaming now, as we have started this week, on several different platforms, including other Facebook pages, including Twitter, YouTube, and even Twitch, giving that a shot there because, well, it's important to be where it's accessible, because that's the entire point of the show here, is to have the accessibility and the conversation that comes with it. A very important point that can be lost in the milieu sometimes there about conversations. That's what we want to do, and that's what we want to have. So to set the stage for those conversations here today, a few things to talk about, as not exactly by popular request, but by kind of local demand, did have a significant visit by El Paso's Congresswoman Veronica Escobar, along with some of her Democrat congressional colleagues, touring some of those facilities over at Fort Bliss. We'll get into that, as well as it's not exactly a local subject, but it certainly would have an effect here locally, and it's been taking up a lot of brain space for me and a lot of other listeners out there, the whole national debt deal and all of the trappings and stuff, and the kind of future fight that comes with that. We'll get into that as well. And then also with our interview today, going to be talking with Wen Fa, attorney with the Pacific Legal Foundation, about a case that will have a different kind of impact in Texas polling places coming forth. Of course, we've been talking about being on the cusp of that next election, as much as you might not want to think about it, because the last one still feels pretty fresh there, don't it? But we are going to be on the verge of getting into the primary elections and then setting up the next general election. It truly just never stops these days. But one important thing that you may not have known, but could have some deep impacts, particularly when it comes to precedent setting, we'll be getting into that. What you can even wear to a polling place. I'll tease you with that for now. And so that's some of the stuff we're talking about here today, as we're on in a bunch of different places here, as we have John Hertz now asking me to mention. That's a little bit better, but I'll take a look at that statement during the break here and see where we're at. But we are streaming on different, again, the platforms here. The comments are supposed to then come central here. Twitter doesn't do them, unfortunately, but it's one of the better ways to have the interaction during the show here. So I will review the comment. I just don't want to Ron Burgundy myself, which is something that I would absolutely do before realizing it. And then there'd be 10 seconds of audio missing from the live broadcast and be wondering what happened because I slipped up there. So yes, if you're, again, I just don't do the challenges of I bet you won't say this. You're right, I won't, because that's not what we do things. Anyway, getting down to some of the tasks at hand here. Again, we had Congresswoman Veronica Escobar in the area today after having a brief news conference, after having spoken with both refugees and service members out at Fort Bliss. She was also joined by, again, a couple of colleagues here, specifically a Congressman Mark Vesey from Texas 33 and Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia from the Texas 29. So all Texas-based overall. They did have a live stream, the news conference, and had some audio from it. Unfortunately, they were right by the airport, and frankly, the mic setup wasn't good. Audio was not great from any outlet that I heard from it, so we're not going to break down any of the sound bites from it, just because it's, well, we can just discuss it better. Saying that they had met both, briefly with some of the Afghan refugees, that talked about food, services, education, the things going on there, as well as with service members. Now, of course, one of the burning questions coming out recently is about that recent incident that we've had a few callers on about, that assault that is now being investigated by federal authorities. What they said in general about that is that they had a confidential briefing from federal authorities involved in the investigation of that. So there's not too much detail they can go into, but they did hear that the service member is, to my knowledge, I think has also been previously reported back in on duty, and is recovered well from that incident. So that was a bit of good news. I will say, to the questions that have been raised by members of our audience, specifically those about, okay, so what is going to go on here? What's going to be happening, particularly with resettlement? The idea is that, yes, that will be a consistent term used during the press conference, was guests, and that that will be becoming new neighbors in certain areas. Not a lot of specifics in this format anyway about where it is going to be. But again, I'm going to be surprised if it's going to be, at the very least, in our immediate broadcast area here in West Texas and southern New Mexico, because not a lot of resettlement agencies. Well, I'll take a step back there. I haven't looked as detailed into southern New Mexico, but at least West Texas in general, not really any of those agencies as much presence. So, and so she did speak there. No, we don't have any clips here today. Some questioning going on about that on the social media pages because the audio just it would be more painful than probative in its value with that. So we'll try to break down a little bit more about that. The other members that were joining her there, they did decry the lack of bipartisan nature of it, that no one would go with them. But, well, she's certainly led tours like this in the past that have been decidedly of one political bent, is what I will say. On other particular issues, I actually just recall something at the moment, happened to be on one of their border tours, bringing down other members of the Democrat caucus from the national legislature. I think that was either a couple of days before or the day before August 3rd happened, back in 2019. So that's, I guess I'm not surprised that no one joined her on it, is what it comes down to make maybe a slightly weird reference there. All right. One other thing I wanted to mention here, because we both got some of those pound 250 calls on it. It's been taking up, again, just a whole lot of free real estate, but at least my mind and others, that of the whole debt ceiling deal. And has apparently been made now, though it kind of just delays the fight, is the sum total of it's not a solution so much as it is a kicking of the can down the road, because the fight over it still remains to be had. There's just basically an extension towards December, that time of the year when lawmakers are absolutely just glued to their desks in Washington and focused only on the national business, as opposed to, year-end recesses, vacations, that fun stuff. Yeah, so I'm not going to hold my breath, because I would probably die if I'm going to expect anything to be concretely done in between now and then, which was proposed. But this fight keeps happening. Given all the arguments going into it, I understand the strong positions, particularly on both sides there, but I don't think, I don't appreciate, and I don't think many people appreciate the kind of national debt default chicken that is being played here in the middle of it. Yeah, you heard of the news report at the top of the hour about markets rebounding on it. If there's anything government should be, it should be slow moving and constant, and these back and forth yo-yoing, not great in any kind of way, shape, form, or fashion. Yeah, so those are some of the things coming into the show here today, both locally and nationally. We're due for a break right now, but coming back from the break, we're also going to get into, again, a discussion about some of those other issues just at the ballot box. Coming up here, a discussion with the Pacific Legal Foundation about a case they were involved in here in Texas and what that's going to mean for what happens the next time you go to vote. So stay tuned for that with more Talk El Paso here after the break on News Radio 690 KTSM. I don't know about you, but the earlier days ending, sunlight going away, has been leaving me a little sluggish in the afternoons here. Usually like my sunlight, even though I'm stuck inside this room all day. So something I do is to keep my energy up while staying focused and not jittery about it is definitely Clever Tea, KLEVRT, because, well, it's got the benefits that I need to see from it. Both tea gets a bad rap, whole weak tea thing. Not the case at all if you've ever had a really good chance to drink it, because they have caffeine that is, well, it's enough to definitely get you up and get you going without leaving you feeling wired or those kind of, artificial ways, those other drinks that comes in cans and stuff like that. It comes in boxes and bottles and produced locally, which is an incredibly important thing in my mind and the way I make my purchasing decisions. And it's a good blend. Their Oolong Wise blend with a mixture of oolong tea, coconut, pineapple, hibiscus, eucalyptus, hawthorn berry, and cinnamon. That's when you get in the boxes. And then if you get it pre-made in the bottles, which is also available at local stores, comes with just the right amount of sweetness with monk fruit in it, but still 0 calories, keeping you on track with whatever your goals are. So again, you can find them online, clevertea.com, or you can also find them in local stores in boxes and bottles, such as the Brown Street Market, CBD Vita, Upper Valley Mercantile, Muscle Confusion / House of Hoops, and Cooking Time, or again, online. Plus, follow them on social for their next upcoming releases, clevertea.com. That's KLEVRT.com.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Watch out for heavy traffic on the 10 eastbound between Geronimo and Sumac Drive. Also, there's a medical emergency on Dyer Street at Monroe Avenue. And there's another medical emergency that could cause some delays on Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard northbound at Gateway. You could try using Salem and Macomb Street to get by. I'm Marae Jourdain, and that's traffic.
This report is sponsored by DuckDuckGo. Protect your privacy for free with DuckDuckGo.
Your life, your hopes, and whatever you were searching for at 1:15 a.m. It's really none of our business, and it shouldn't be anyone else's. Protect your privacy online for free with DuckDuckGo. DuckDuckGo. Privacy simplified.
Now may be the perfect time to buy a home financed by Loan Depot. Loan Depot has over 300 loan products to help you make home ownership a reality. Interest rates are near historic lows. Rates will not stay low forever. So call 866-888-LOAN so one of our thousands of loan officers can help you find the right loan. Call 866-888-LOAN or visit loandepot.com. Loan Depot. Rates are subject to change. Equal housing opportunity lender. NMLS number 174457. Licensed in all 50 states.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying, totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad, just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
With an open channel,
I guess just try to keep channels open.
we welcome open-minded individuals
I try to keep an open mind to all issues.
with open arms
I think we need to always have our eyes open.
for open conversation. And when you open the iHeartRadio app, you open a whole new world, wherever you are.
What should America do about immigration crisis?
I guess open the borders, but at the same time, check everyone that's coming in.
Open the gates.
A free download in the App Store or at ktsmradio.com. News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the social media pages where we have the full video live stream, including facebook.com/Talk El Paso, plus YouTube, Talk El Paso channel, Twitter, Talk El Paso there as well, and Twitch, which is Andrew J. Polk. They apparently prefer names, not brands, over there. But a lot of other places, other Facebook and YouTube and Twitter channels as well, as we have a few people tuned in right now. And John Hertz asking me, and I will read the Well, do it. I'll put it on screen here and address it directly. Asked me to say that Rashida Tlaib said she's only wearing a mask for, quote, Republican tracker, and the part I disagree with saying proving masks do not work. Okay, I've said this before and I've made no secret of it. I don't take a lot of advice or make decisions only based on the input from national figures of almost any stripe here. So while I may not agree with a lot of things being said by that particular person or the intent behind them here, still wear, particularly in restaurants that ask for it, because I'm not trying to be a jerk, frankly, when it comes down to it. And I'm not wearing a Spider-Man mask either, has been brought up here. So entitled to your own opinion about it. But at the same time, just taking anything one politician says as proof of anything is, well, we've talked about that before, certainly. Anyway, getting to one of our conversations for today here, that about electioneering. And that is specifically the purpose of, getting people, influencing people to vote in a particular way or not. It's technically banned when you are getting to the actual proximity of polling places. You may have seen those signs that we'll bring up here in just a second about, the distance to a polling place. And outside of it, you have the people that are asking you, sometimes nicely, sometimes not, to consider voting for a particular politician or proposition, et cetera, et cetera. They have a limit. They can't follow you into the polling place and stand behind you, kind of thing, which is a good thing. But then, as with most things, it can also be taken too far. So specifically on that subject about what you could wear in a polling place, I was able to sit down and have a conversation with Wenfa attorney with the Pacific Legal Foundation, who we've had on the show before to speak about a variety of things, including, again, what that's going to mean for you going forward in Texas polling places. So here is that interview. Enjoy. All right, and joining us now, we have attorney Wen Fa with the Pacific Legal Foundation. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on.
So we have talked with you all previously in the past about some interesting cases, some that also specifically have affected Texas, and there's another one that you all have just been a part of and just come to a decision on involving electioneering in Texas. For people who may not be familiar with that term, what does this address?
So the Texas electioneering statutes address voters who wear T-shirts, hats, or other apparel into the polling place that an election worker considers electioneering for or against a candidate, measure, or a political party.
So essentially, if you're wearing a T-shirt that says, I like this guy, to throw it back, I like Ike, for example, if he was still on the ballot, and wearing that, that would be considered electioneering in Texas, at least previous to what the decision you all just got is, right?
That's mostly correct. I will note that the Texas electioneering statutes do not contain a limitation that says the candidate has to be on the ballot. I like Ike T-shirts were actually prohibited in Texas.
Okay, well, that's a very important note to make there as well. So what is the case that you all were just a part of?
So the case that we were just a part of and achieved victory in is a case called Ostrowich versus Hudspeth. It's a case in which we represent Jillian Ostrowich, a self-proclaimed fire wife in Houston, Texas, after she was harassed by a poll worker for wearing a T-shirt that just referred to Houston firefighters in the 2018 election. We challenged 3 statutes. The court in Texas, the federal court, held that 2 of those statutes were unconstitutional under the First Amendment because they provided no objective, workable standards for what election workers could allow into the polling place and what they must keep out.
And then what was that third one, I have to ask?
So the third one was actually what we believe to be a misinterpretation of the statute by a court. The third one actually contained the on the ballot limitation that we were talking about earlier. But it was actually intended, although the statute does not expressly say so, it was intended to limit what poll workers could wear on name tags and badges when they went to vote.
Interesting. Okay, so we're dealing with essentially apparel when it comes to being immediately, not even just around, but in the polling place. I think people locally, if they've gone to vote out in person lately, will have seen those 100 feet demarcations. I've dealt with it a lot myself, being in media and having to, get the shots of people voting kind of thing. And it's then having to be pushed back because of that.
Exactly. This applies 100 feet outside of the door of any building in which voting is conducted.
So, yeah, then that's an important clarification to make. None of this was dealing with the people, that would then, at least for me, quietly approach me as I'm exiting my vehicle at the polling place being, hey, will you vote for this guy? And I'll always say, I will think about it. Thank you very much. And then as soon as you cross that line, they have to stop. But this goes then beyond that into the actual polling place.
Correct.
So in this decision that was then made, what kind of a difference will this then make in your all's legal opinion?
Well, I think this is a big win for the First Amendment and for the rule of law. It actually relies heavily on one of PLF's Supreme Court victories on the First Amendment, Minnesota Voters Alliance versus Mansky, in which at oral argument before the Supreme Court, the government's attorney actually said that T-shirts banning the First Amendment, T-shirts containing the text of the First Amendment could be allowed into the polling place, while T-shirts containing the text of the Second Amendment would be prohibited. And I think that just shows the susceptibility of arbitrary enforcement when you have broad statutes like this. We actually asked 3 election workers and 2 election officials, one at the county level and one at the state level, about whether certain types of apparel, whether it be Houston firefighters or NRA or Black Lives Matter, would be banned or allowed into the polling place. And on every hypothetical that we asked, the election workers and the election officials disagreed about the proper application of these statutes, which I think only goes to show that broad and vague statutes lead inevitably to arbitrary enforcement.
Yeah, and the subjectability of that kind of thing, because given the amount of discussion that is had on things like our show and the acceptability of certain positions or not, it becomes immediately then very subjective, which is not a great place in standard law to be, to my understanding.
Definitely. When voters go to vote, and just, in everyday life, people expect that the law will be governed by objective standards, that they will know what is prohibited and what is not. But these statutes are applied in such arbitrary ways, so that voters, who are stopped, like Ms. Oshowich, feel singled out.
And yeah, I mean, there's a certain amount of people want to, feel safe, secure, and readily available to vote. There's been a lot of discussion about that. Again, the T-shirt in question here literally just said Houston firefighters, right?
Right.
Again, if you're just joining us, guest right now is Wenfa, attorney with the Pacific Legal Foundation. You want to find out anything more about them, some of the work they do, or see about this case, you can find them at pacificlegal.org. And we talked about them previously, about some of their other cases, specifically those affecting Texas as well. For people who may have missed it previously, give a little brief blurb about what Pacific Legal Foundation is.
Pacific Legal Foundation is a nonprofit public interest organization with 14 wins before the Supreme Court of the United States. We fight for individual liberty in courts all over the United States on important issues such as property rights, separation of powers, and equality and opportunity.
People may, I think it came up last time we talked, people may have a familiarity with other such organizations such as the ACLU, but you all take a kind of different tact on it, but similar kind of goals on, again, equal justice for law and things important like that.
So we are a nonprofit public interest organization like the ACLU, but we come at cases and at principles from the perspective of individual liberty. We believe that everybody is an individual entitled to life, liberty, and property, and we fight in courts all across the United States to vindicate that important principle.
So when it comes to this case, I mean, again, some of the general principles we've talked about here, I think a lot of people can get, but for those that may not and be thinking, okay, we're talking about wearing a T-shirt in the polling place, big whoop, why should I care? So when you're really then looking at, talking both about, when it comes to the Supreme Court, I think a lot of people may more get at that setting precedent is an important thing, but even at this level, it's also can be very significant in other factors of deciding cases like this and other implementations of how the First Amendment is or isn't allowed in certain cases, right?
Definitely. This is a very important case for the First Amendment and for the rule of law. Government officials frequently have very broad and vague laws in which they have a lot of discretion to do whatever they want. And I think this case is another major precedent to saying that laws must be governed by objective, workable standards so that people know what is prohibited and what isn't.
One of the reactions that I've seen to, at least when they're not even this current one, but when this was first being discussed here within Texas and these kind of rules were being implemented, is that saying, you shouldn't be able to wear vote for X candidate or I'll kill you kind of a T-shirt. So when that kind of an argument comes up, what is your response or reaction to that?
Well, we've gotten a lot of discovery. We've gotten a lot of facts in this case. I have never seen one example of someone wearing a vote for this candidate or I'll kill you T-shirt. If that was something that was an actual true statement, I think that could be interpreted as a threat. What we have seen are, people who are harassed at the polling place for wearing T-shirts that say things like Reagan, Bush, Obama, even when those candidates aren't on the ballot. And we've asked the state of Texas to produce evidence showing what kind of interest this actually furthers, and they've not been able to produce any evidence. In fact, several states across the country do not have similar types of prohibition on just a voter wearing a T-shirt into the polling place, and elections proceed as usual in those states as well.
Now, with this, both this decision and, of course, the different Texas laws that are coming into place, are you expecting any kind of further action on this? Any further appeals on behalf of some of the other parties in this case, or just again, given those possible interactions with the new laws, any further expectations in this particular set of cases?
Well, I think both sides they can still file an appeal within the next month. So I think it remains to be seen the next steps. I certainly think that this is a very important case, a very important issue. We're talking about criminal penalties to voters for the simple act of wearing a T-shirt. And I think when you tell people that, the common sense would say that's wrong.
And given that we are on the cusp of the next election season, both primaries and general elections coming up, I guess, what do you want people to know sum total about the decision here in this case and what that means for as they're headed to the ballot box next?
Well, I think under this decision, voters can wear apparel that is, previously prohibited, like apparel that deals with off the ballot candidates, issues, or political parties. I think when you talk about on the ballot, because the court upheld one of the three statutes, that's a little bit more of a gray area about how Texas will continue to apply this law in the future. But as always, I think we are, willing to stand up for individual liberty. And I think, we are committed to vindicating the right of all Americans to free speech.
And if that third issue comes up at a case or court law again, will you be interested in representing that as well?
Well, I think we are certainly considering all of our options, including an appeal in this case. And, either way, we are committed to fighting for the free speech rights of all Americans.
Absolutely. So again, guest right now has been Wen Fa, attorney with the Pacific Legal Foundation. Again, find more information on them or this case, pacificlegal.org. We'll post up the release to this particular case over on our Facebook page as well, facebook.com/Talk El Paso. So Wen, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us about this set of issues and the broader implications, of course, it has here today.
Thanks for having me on.
All right. Again, thanks again to Wen for taking the time to speak with us. I mean, it may seem niche. I get that. But again, given that we are absolutely approaching the ballot box here and the time when we're going to be going back to it, it's also important to, consider what we can or can't do. And again, the implications going forward about, free speech and those kind of rights. It still strikes me from years back. I remember in some previous protests, I think even pre-2016, so ancient history at this point, there was some California city set up a quote-unquote free speech zone in front of their city hall for protesters and things like that. And I just can remember thinking, wait, pardon me if I'm wrong, but wasn't the entire United States supposed to be a free speech zone? So it's one that always kind of gets me, and particularly given the medium we do here, the conversations we have, seems like an important one to me. So it always gets me a little bit. So we're going to take that break right now, but coming back from the break, we'll get to more calls and comments over there where we have John Hertz, Barbara Carrasco, and more tuning in with us right now. We're more tuning in, them specifically sharing their comments, but again, more on that and everything more, and the calls on the line. That number to call, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Beyond the important public rights you want to fight for, another thing you want to make sure you're keeping track of and fighting for when necessary is that of your personal health. And of course, it being October, the main concern being talked about right now is that of breast cancer awareness. So over at Therapeutics and Thermography, El Paso Business Inside Biometrics over there on Sunland Park Drive, they are offering $50 off all breast thermograms for the month of October because it's an important thing to keep track of it. And this is an important tool that you can use to, stay better informed, stay better on top of things, both for your health in general, but specifically when it comes to breast cancer and breast cancer awareness. This one can help identify problems even before they show up in other methods. Now, you should always talk with your medical professional, but these are also FDA-approved methods that go through full medical review that can help you, again, get a literal better picture of what's going on. So if you want to give them a call, that number is 915-401-4053, 915-401-4053, or find them online at elpasothermography.com. That's El Paso Thermography, THERMOGRAPHY.com.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with Escape Fox 14 News Update. The former executive director of the Humane Society of El Paso, Luke Westerman, has pleaded guilty to 19 charges in Ohio. Westerman issued a guilty plea this week in the Franklin County Court of Common Pleas. Westerman was indicted in 19 securities-related felonies. Reports by local media in Ohio indicate that prosecutors said he solicited at least 19 Ohioans to invest more than $1 million into companies owned or controlled by him and used the money on personal expenses unrelated to the businesses. Investigators from the state shared that the victims were from New Lebanon, Brookville, Jackson, Troy, Trotwood, Columbus, Colorado, and Texas. Westerman had been living in El Paso for almost a year when he was indicted by a grand jury in Ohio in December 2018. The year before, Westerman left Ohio to become the executive director of the Humane Society in El Paso. The Humane Society fired Westerman on January 8, 2019, one day after he was booked into an Ohio jail. I'm Erica Castillo with Escape Fox 14 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Watch out for stop-and-go traffic on Paisano Drive northbound between Mesa and Santa Fe Street. Also, there's a collision on Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard northbound at Gateway. You could try using Salem and Macomb Street to get by. And there's a medical emergency that could cause some delays on Zaragoza just south of Pellway. Pendale and North Loop Drive are your alternates here. I'm Marie Jourdain with traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. We've got another quiet night ahead of us, but we are expecting more changes. In fact, quite an active weather pattern, at least for the next 7 days out. What we are expecting for your Friday is a bit more of a windy setup with winds to around 25, 30 miles an hour. Saturday, we could be flirting with near record warmth, and then a cold front drops in on Sunday, cools us down, and strengthens our winds.
This report is sponsored by ExpressPros.com. Looking for a holiday job or seasonal work? It's time to get to know Express Employment Professionals. Visit ExpressPros.com to find your local office and let them help you find a job. No fees for job seekers. ExpressPros.com.
Hey folks, this is Andrew J. Polk. These days, it's important to know where to go to get quality medical care and services when you need it. The go-to for my family is Dr. Alan Carpenter and his team at Upper Valley Urgent Care Center for any minor medical emergency. Equipped with 20 exam rooms and the tech to go with it, they're ready to handle colds and testing all the way to x-rays. Open 7 days a week, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., fast and friendly with no appointment needed at 121 East Red Road. Celebrating their 15th anniversary this fall, Upper Valley Urgent Care Center. Take control of your health and stay on top of the latest medical innovations by tuning in every Saturday at noon to Medical Hackers with Dr. Sandeep Rao, board-certified vascular interventionalist with healthcare hacks to help you navigate our complex medical system and insights on treatments for common medical problems weekly on News Radio 690 KTSM. Have a question for the doc? Submit them ahead of the show by emailing rao@medicalhackers.com. That's Medical Hackers with Dr. Sandeep Rao. Coming this Saturday at noon right here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Radio advertising can connect your business with holiday shoppers wherever they go. Use iHeart Ad Builder to create an affordable custom radio ad right on your phone. Just click, listen, approve, then hear it on the radio. Create your customized ad today at iHeartAdBuilder.com.
Your life, your hopes, and whatever you were searching for at 1:15 a.m. It's really none of our business, and it shouldn't be anyone else's. Protect your privacy online for free with DuckDuckGo. DuckDuckGo. Privacy simplified.
This report is sponsored by DuckDuckGo. Protect your privacy for free with DuckDuckGo.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
You just heard a little bit about it, but be sure again to tune in this Saturday at noon to Medical Hackers with Dr. Sandeep Rao. He is a real doctor, board-certified vascular interventionalist, as opposed to some of those other doctors you may see in other media that have interesting titles. Dr. Phil is not his last name, is all I'm saying. But he goes into those real topics, real discussions about the real issues that he sees both in his practice and that are coming up within the medical fields that he stays on top of. Specifically this week, he will be talking about both COVID vaccines and the disease itself, the risks between that, and what they both mean for deep vein thrombosis. Right way to say it, also known as DVT, which is something that he deals with in his practice and other minimally invasive procedures. So all of that, plus how to navigate a complex medical system, that's coming up again this Saturday at noon with Medical Hackers with Dr. Sandeep Rao. You can drop him a line if you got a question for him. Sometimes we get people asking, hey, how can I get in contact with this guy? You can do it by emailing Rao@medicalhackers.com. That's RAO, his last name, at medicalhackers.com, and he'll read those questions and answer them during the show. So drop him a line. Again, listen to Medical Hackers coming up this noon on Saturday on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so. On air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on both the Facebook page, well, all of the Facebook page, other ways online, and many other pages that we're now doing it on. And one of the neat things that this new method allows us to do is also to, wherever those comments are coming in, putting it in the main broadcast there, as we have, I think the comment disappeared. We had Louis Pinato a little bit earlier, John Hertz of Barbara Carrasco chiming in right now, and more tuning in. So thank you for doing so, because the conversation is what makes this interesting to me. Anyway, speechifying is, well, sermons make me sleepy is the way I usually think about it. So that's why we're opening up the phone lines as we usually do during this point in the show. That number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Also, realize I didn't do it quite before the break here, but I'll get it up there. Again, in that feed, we can also post up the comments to where the Pacific Legal Foundation has set that, well, they put more about the polling place dress code, as they put it, which is just an interesting phrase that drags up a lot of issues for me. So that was our interview a little bit earlier. But again, get into those comments and calls as well. Lou Pinato taking issue with Dr. Fauci and others on there. Again, you can see the comments for yourself. That one over on Facebook, but on all of them, they will put up some of the significant ones as well. So get into some of those phone calls. Again, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Right now we do have Sal over in Central. Sal, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, hey, yes, sir. Hi, Andrew. How you doing?
Doing all right.
I've been trying to call in the last couple of days, but I haven't had a chance.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. What's on your mind?
I have questions. Have you guys had a conversation on Veronica Escobar and the border crisis?
To us having a conversation to an extent, the information coming out of that office, I will say not as much. I was somewhat pleasantly surprised to see that they were focusing on that here today, but I will say there hasn't been a lot of DC focus coming out of her office, both her district and her DC office itself, focused on the issues going on there, and not so much focus, which we've had callers then express their frustration with, shall we say.
Okay. It's because I had, like a week ago, I got a word or some information that 500 to 1,000 of these illegal aliens, not aliens, but immigrants are being transported to El Paso, to some of our local churches.
Yep.
And 20% of that are COVID positive. And I'm just really concerned because the border crisis is not being taken serious by the Biden administration or by Veronica Escobar. She has not stepped up for the Paso people, and I need to know where she stands.
I mean, she's made some previous statements along the lines that can help elucidate where she stands on that. But I will say, again, not terrific amount of today was kind of the closest thing, talking at least about, they spoke kind of tangentially about the refugees and then also as well as the underage facilities out there. Not too much of a focus on that from here today, but I'll agree with you. It's also been kind of an issue for this whole administration, and DC hasn't it? I mean, I would love for them to come visit El Paso and make some real, strong statements about here is our plan. Let's get that launched here, because we keep, of course, going back and forth over these kind of greatest hits of the last two administrations, their big policies. And even if it's bad, I'd like to at least hear it from the Biden administration. So I guess I don't see a whole lot of daylight between the local congresswoman and the administration on this, and not a whole lot of statements coming out of either. I'll say that.
Yes, sir. Oh, my bad.
No worries.
Yeah, no. My bad. I dropped my phone.
Let's be careful there.
Today, I saw a video where 15 governors from all over the country got together.
Yep, 11 of them
and
yesterday,
they
including Greg
expressed-
Abbott. Yep.
They expressed the concern about the fentanyl, the drugs coming in, the cartels making a lot of money, and it's like Biden is nowhere to be found. Kamala Harris has never been to the border, neither has Biden. I mean, we need some leadership here, and we're not getting anything. And they are stalling because these governors have sent letters to the Biden administration, and they are stalling. The Border Patrol said the last time they sent a letter, it took them 60 days to get a response. So they're snowballing this crisis on the border. We have a real crisis on the border, and a lot of drugs and a lot of our children being killed with the fentanyl and all these drugs coming in. And nobody seems to care.
I mean, I'll disagree with you on that point. I care deeply, but when it comes to elected officials, I think is your larger point there. Yeah, we do have, particularly at the top levels here, some, MIA is the best way to put it. I would, again, love to see it planned, if only for signs of life coming out of it, because we got these governors, the 11 yesterday and the more than 20 that have signed onto that letter that you're mentioning there, asking for anything. And yeah, so open invitation there to the White House. Come on down here. Let's have a visit. Let's at least talk about some of these things, because then this is not even just a conservative issue. There's not a whole lot of people pleased at the response here from either side of the aisle. Now, of course, the differences in what they're displeased about is a little bit sticky, but at the same time, yeah, please, let's do something. Let's do anything. And I don't feel like that should be a controversial thing, but it usually comes down that way. So thank you for that point and that call there. Do appreciate it. All right, we're due for a break right now. So coming back from the break, we'll be getting to more of those calls, squeezing in what we can, at least 1-2 pound 250 call about that, and a whole lot more. Just don't forget Friday's coming is all I'm going to say. And so even if you don't want to leave it today, pound 250, keyword Talk El Paso, so we can leave it for future days here. But at the same time, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more. Another thing that you need to make sure you keep an eye on, talking about health issues and circumstances around it, is where to go when you're having those minor medical emergencies. You know, those fun little things that you don't plan for, that don't come at convenient times and can often upend your plans in its entirety. So particularly for those minor ones, those aches, scrapes, pains, breaks, bruises, sniffles, and more, Upper Valley Urgent Care is pretty much my go-to, and also for my family. For instance, my wife got something in her eye that just would not wash out and was causing her serious issues. So we were wondering, okay, could we just stay with this, and made the decision, now it's not worth risking sight over something that may be minor. So we went to Upper Valley Urgent Care. They got us a prescription and what we needed so that we could get on with our lives here without having the hugest disruption. But to accommodate for that, they are open 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., not even just Monday through Friday, but every day of the week, including, again, those nights, weekends, holidays, because when you need it, you can't be, sorry, we're closed right now. We're not just open today. That doesn't really work now, does it? So if you want to find them, 121 East Red Road, celebrating their 15th anniversary this fall, Upper Valley Urgent Care.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
It looks like there's still some heavy traffic on Paisano Drive northbound between Boone and Santa Fe Street. Also, there's an accident to look out for on Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard northbound at Gateway. Salem and Macomb Street are your alternates here. And the off-ramp is closed on the Loop 375 southbound at Alameda Avenue. I'm Marie Jourdain, and that's traffic.
This report is sponsored by DuckDuckGo. Protect your privacy for free with DuckDuckGo.
Your life, your hopes, and whatever you were searching for at 1:15 a.m. It's really none of our business, and it shouldn't be anyone else's. Protect your privacy online for free with DuckDuckGo. DuckDuckGo. Privacy simplified.
TheTrustedLab.com carries CBD made in America with the highest quality products. Get your CBD from a Texas company at TheTrustedLab.com. Great alternative to addictive drugs, plus it's lab-tested clean CBD. It's what I use. TheTrustedLab.com.
Hey, El Paso and surrounding areas. Ivan Ochoa here, General Manager from Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, and Fiat. I have some great news. Interest rates have never been so low, and we have a great selection of new and certified pre-owned vehicles. So, if you need something newer, bigger, better, or just more reliable, and you don't want to pay more, you need to come see us today.
During Jeep Adventure Days, Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat will do whatever it takes to get you out of your current vehicle. Even if you owe up to $10,000 more than your old car is worth, we want it. So you can drive home a new or certified pre-owned vehicle for less. Save thousands in interest with zero APR for 72 months. Plus, save thousands at the all-new Sunland Park Dodge Certified Pre-Owned Super Center. Our inventory of cars, trucks, and SUVs has never been better. All military personnel, all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, or buying a car is fun at I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. Zero APR is $13.72 per thousand finance. On select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Looking for a holiday job or seasonal work? It's time to get to know Express Employment Professionals. Visit expresspros.com to find your local office and let them help you find a job. No fees for job seekers. expresspros.com.
Weather and traffic info. You need it? We have it. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed. News Radio 690 KTSM.
I spent a lot of time in the garage, but even more time in the rain and mud. In 95, I helped tow your moving trailer. And in 09, it was sparks from me, your chains, dragging behind your truck that accidentally started a wildfire.
Spark a change, not a wildfire. Visit SmokeyBear.com, brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. However you want to interact with the show, there's a lot of ways you can do it. We're both taking those phone calls to the end of the hour, squeezing in what we can here. 915-444-5876, 544-KTSM, as well as comments on the Facebook page. Leslie Jones, not happy with the representation we're saying, said that Escobar doesn't represent El Paso. She represents herself, more concerned with popularity and the squad is her impression there. And Maria Kalman saying a little bit earlier that Escobar is not elusive but careful about what she says. So, again, see those comments for yourself and more on that's over from the Facebook page, but we're streaming in a bunch of different ways. And, of course, you can also leave your comments by giving us a call, even after the show, by doing that over on the pound 250 line. And it's not even just anyone. It's not limited to anyone who can do it. Anyone can leave their sentiments on the pound 250 keyword Talk El Paso with comments such as this.
Hi, it's Mike from the East Side. You know, of all the talk of the debt expansion and increasing and stuff like that, I thought we'd just do a quick review of the last 7 presidents and how the debt went up under their terms. Reagan went up $1.9 trillion in 8 years. Bush number 1, $1.4 trillion in 4 years. Bill Clinton, it went up $1.6 trillion in 8 years. George W. Bush, $4.9 trillion in 8 years. Barack Obama, $9.3 trillion increase in 8 years. And Donald Trump, the national debt went up $7.7 trillion in 4 years. Joe Biden has gone up as of today. The national debt clock is $28.431 trillion. So it's gone up $8 billion in the 9 months that he's been president. All told, like I said, $28.431 trillion as of this morning. We're in trouble, people. Some point that's going to totally consume the budget. Thanks, and have a great day.
I mean, it's an important subject, and when we talk a decent amount, I will say one minor misconception comes from this, that it's like a loan that you or I get where we have to pay our interest on it, whereas the majority of the debt is actually held by other parts of the government, because the one thing that's different between you and I has been brought up, is that we don't then create the currency that the debt is then due in. So a little bit different there. There is, of course, trillions of dollars and oversee holdings of like our bonds and securities and things like that. That certainly does have a life to it, and that has to be repaid, but it's not even a majority of that 20 plus trillion. It all comes down to confidence, and that's when we start getting to these levels that becomes an issue, certainly here. All right, trying to squeeze in at least a couple more here if we can. We do have Barbara on the west side right now. Barbara, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for taking my call. I understand that man's frustration with a representative because she's not a representative, but I wanted to show why things are happening and why she is supporting Biden in a disastrous way. His disapproval ratings are 67% on the border and immigration. And it's no wonder. This morning, Malusian was reporting that 2 confirmed Gulf cartel members in Reynosa were arrested. An MS-13 member was arrested. 2 members from the Latin Kings, the most violent cartel, were arrested. One of them had a tattoo on his neck, and Malusian said that was an indicator that he'd been in prison. Then one man was caught. He had been charged with first-degree child rape as well as incest. And finally, get a load of this, in La Jolla, Malusian and his crew pulled up to a McDonald's, and lo and behold, they saw, I guess, the Border Patrol arrested 2 men. These 2 were mercenaries from the Gulf cartel, and they had just participated in a failed ambush of the Mexican Marines. These are only, 9 or 10 people that I mentioned that were caught. Imagine who else is coming through our porous borders. But our representative, we are the Ellis Island on the border. She welcomes all immigrants. We should be more compassionate, more humane. This is not humane or compassionate when you have child rapists coming into our country and, abusing our children. We have child rapists at one of the camps. I mean, our military servicewoman got raped here at the border. I sent her 34 questions on September the 28th. So as gentlemen, tell him not to hold his breath to get an answer. And today is October the 7th. I've got no reply, and I don't intend to get a reply. I don't expect a reply. But that's what our representative does. Absolutely nothing. And she was on the TV with a squad, like this young lady on your Facebook said, and
right.
I saw her too earlier this week. So we don't have a representative, bottom line.
I mean, I get the frustration there, and frankly, I don't even think those ideas are incompatible about both being welcoming to legal immigrants and wanting to have border security. I mean, it comes down one way or the other in the rhetoric here, but I mean, this may sound controversial, but I don't think that these are incompatible ideas. So we're going to have to leave it there for today because we are out of time. So thank you to everyone who did comment, call, and participate in the show. Tomorrow's Friday, and you know what we're going to do that day, so be sure to tune in for that. And we'll keep doing it again, 4 to 5 p.m. right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles. Have a great evening, y'all. Now for another Medicare moment with Eric with Advocate Health Advisors. Will enrolling in a Medicare Advantage plan interfere with VA benefits or care?
Generally, no. So in addition to the great care a veteran receives at the VA, a Medicare Advantage plan will just add another layer of health care, and it's delivered through a civilian network to the veteran so they can use that in conjunction with their VA care. This will produce a comprehensive health care coverage plan that provides additional care at low and oftentimes no cost to the veteran. This coverage in no way.
News on the hour and the hat. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. Wall Street is closing with stocks in the green after lawmakers reached a short-term deal to increase the debt ceiling. Stocks reached their highs of the session when Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer announced the deal. It will extend the debt ceiling through at least early December. President Biden says he's ordered a vaccine mandate for companies with 100 or more employees pending approval.
This Labor Department vaccination requirement will cover 100 million Americans, about 2/3 of all the people who work in America.
His remarks came as he was in the Chicago area today, where he insisted mandates protect the economy because people can get back to work, and noted they have broad public support. A North Texas high school shooting suspect is out on bond. Timothy Simpkins didn't say a word after he was released from a jail in Fort Worth this afternoon. Arlington police say the 18-year-old pulled a gun yesterday inside Timberview High School west of Dallas. A teacher and a 15-year-old were struck by bullets and are hospitalized. A new report shows a Russian-speaking cyber criminal group is targeting North American hospitals. Lisa Taylor reports.
Cybersecurity group Mandiant calls the group Fin12 and says they're going after organizations with more than $300 million in revenue. The report says 1 in 5 of their victims are healthcare facilities. The group was asking for ransoms as much as $5 to $50 million. Fin12 is suspected of executing a ransomware attack